Hello, everybody. My name is V the Victim, and this is my review for GG Season 4, Episode 9. This one's going to be a little bit different from the others. I'm going to talk about a few things that are a little bit less directly related to the challenges themselves and what we saw in the episode. So I'll try not to make it run too long, but let me get right into it. So first of all, I was linked in my Discord this past week a cool document. So there was a Reddit thread about like people's performance in GG this season and overall, I think. And in there, somebody has a crazy detailed spreadsheet of everybody's challenge performances and basically how everybody stacks up against each other in GG. I thought that was really cool. It was a super fun read. And one of the takeaways is that Settled is performing like an absolute beast this season. Another one is that Roydy is doing extremely well. And this is something that I think a few people had a good idea of during the season, but at least so far, his performance has been very, very good. He's made a lot of tribunals. I believe the same is Settled now, which I want to say is 5. But yeah, and it's just really cool. So I'll go ahead and link that spreadsheet in the description if you're interested. Give it a look. It's pretty cool. And part of that, in the Reddit thread in particular, people mentioned basically like, one of my big takeaways is that V the Victim sucks. And he's kind of right. You know, if you look at how I've performed in some of these challenges, it's not so great. And even when I won season 3, especially my regular season performance was definitely not the craziest. And I think it has some cool talking points associated with that. For one, it's interesting how most of the contestants put a ton of respect on my name. And a lot of people viewing and talking about me in this thread and stuff don't. They're like, he's playing really badly. And it's just interesting to think about the difference between someone's peak skill in something versus their current level and what they're playing at. And for me during GG, season 3 and season 4, I hadn't really played the game at all before the filmings, like none. And I certainly hadn't practiced anything GG related. You know, we've heard people say things like we've been sending each other pictures for Gielinor and stuff like that. And it's like, nah, I literally, when GG season 4 was being filmed, I was in the middle of moving. And so I just gotten ready to moved, and then finished moving. And I hadn't been playing the game at all. I was terrible, you know, but I think a lot of the contestants still see me as this absolute beast from when I was really good at the game. And I probably would have crushed almost all the challenges and was a great PVMer and all that. So it's really interesting just to get like the difference in perspectives. And I think it says a lot about the way that I play the game, that I continue to try to either downplay if everybody thinks that I'm washed up, or like this season, try to really play up my skill, even though my performances haven't been exactly where they need to be, like someone like Settled who's been crushing it. So it's just interesting. And yeah, like I said, I'll link the spreadsheet and I'd be curious to see what you guys think about that. But on to the episode itself. So this episode 9 was Prop Hunt, and I had never played Prop Hunt, actually. I think I might have played it one time in Gary's mod ages ago. I've watched like all of Jimmy's videos on it because it's awesome. And I was really excited. Everybody was really excited. It was a really fun day, but at the same time, it was kind of weird having something that wasn't really a skill-based challenge at all be something that had like an impact late in the season on who would go into the bannings. So I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think that episodes like this are really good. Just like the DH banning that I was in last week, it's good to have episodes like this because not everything should be super skill based. But coming this late in the season, I don't know if I loved it, but it was extremely fun. And I think that challenges where everybody's in a call together unmuted, those are just like peak GG, because everybody's having a good time. People are talking trash. People are getting nervous when they're about to get found or whatever. And it was just extremely fun. And it was also really cool to get Jimmy back in here as the seeker for Prop Hunt. It's kind of his thing, you know. Obviously, I think Idol was the one who designed the plugin, but Jimmy made a ton of really popular videos playing Prop Hunt with Settled and Framed and Supinate Sat. It was really nice to get him on the season because he wasn't able to accept the invite for multiple reasons. And so just getting him on the season, I think everybody loves Jimmy. He's hilarious, great to have around. It's unfortunate that he was seeking in a different voice channel. I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't have been fair, so we couldn't have him in our voice channel. But all the same, great to have him on the show. And I hope that Soup does stuff like this again. I think having somebody come in and be like the boss or whatever of a week is really cool. And I think there are a lot of ways you could do it. So hope to see more of this in the future. And I think that's a really good one-off thing to do, and great to get Jimmy on the show. As for the actual circumstances of the games, I used my sabotage on Foe this week. Had the fun little chance to say it was RNG when obviously I just picked him straight up, just like they picked me, and I knew it the week before in the banning. And he did a great job. He picked tall, skinny things that he could make blend in with existing scenery as much as possible. And it definitely impacted his performance, but obviously he made the tribunal. So he did a great job. And two, I don't know necessarily how strong the sabotage was. I actually had a conversation with Soup recently that I found really interesting, where he had a couple of things he would change about the challenge. One of them was that he's not sure he would have allowed non-standalone sort of things that blended in. Like, I think he probably especially had in mind the pillar in the Warriors Guild. Now, I think Foe did a great job there in blending in, and I think a lot of people would have just stuck it somewhere stupid and visible, and it wouldn't have done anything, like maybe myself, to be honest with you. But I think he mentioned maybe if we ran Prop Hunt back, he'd think about trying to require something be like a standalone thing. He also said something similar about the information scrolls. You know, we saw in the second round in the Warriors Guild, framed and settled were the information scroll on the wall. But Soup said he didn't realize that they were actually sitting on top of an existing information scroll. He thought that it was only on the other side of the wall, and they had taken up a position on the opposite side so that the right click would like go through the wall and click on the actual poster, but he didn't realize that there was a poster on top of them as well. So he was thinking that maybe that also wouldn't be allowed in the future. There are definitely some changes that could be made to Prop Hunt. I also think it'd be really, really fun to do it earlier in the season. The stakes are a little lower, and there are a lot more people to enjoy it. So I think that it'd be a really, really good challenge for one of the earlier episodes. And I think later in the season, maybe not quite as good, although it was still a ton of fun. I'd love to have had like twice as many people participating, and also having it be probably something that's a little less high stake. Here at episode 9, we're pretty close to the end of the season. Having yourself maybe get eliminated after losing at something like Prop Hunt, which is very subjective. The Seeker is the one who determines how well you did, just whether or not the Seeker happens to find you. Like if you look at Taverly, Roydy and his stool just happened not to get found. And that's not to say it wasn't a good spot, it was, but Settled also was a stool somewhere else. And I think he blended in pretty well, and he got found nearly instantly. So I don't know. I love Prop Hunt as a challenge, but definitely some things you could change as well. And Soup agrees with that. So if we see it in a future season, it'll be interesting to see exactly what form that is when it comes in the season, who's seeking. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just interested in that. But overall, really happy with the challenge. A lot of fun. And Bodhi threw away his chance to be in the tribunal to just be a gigantic theater of blood in the back of the Warriors Guild. And this actually highlights another the main difficulty, I would say, of participating in the challenge, which is finding the item IDs of the prop that you were going to be. I think we only had maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to find which prop we were going to be. And that by far was the hardest part of the challenge. Because I think if everybody knew all of the item IDs, we all could have done some crazy stuff and some really good hides and stuff. But instead, we had to all scramble to just like rush through a list and be like, okay, maybe I want to be a plant pot, and you control F pot. And then you have to like press spam through and find a plant pot that looks about what you're thinking like it would, you know? And so if you wanted to be tall wooden pole 3 or whatever, you would have to know what it was called, find it in the list, and then test that ID, and then find a location that you wanted to go to. So that actually was the hardest part of the challenge, was just figuring out what item ID you wanted to be. And you could think of something you wanted to be and not be able to find the item ID, or you could find an item ID and be like, oh, this is perfect, but then not have somewhere to put it. So it's definitely a scramble. And that was the hardest part of the challenge by far, was trying to figure out what to be and where to be it in time, because we didn't have a lot of time for this. So anyway, Bodhi becomes a theater of blood, gets found instantly because he hid in the back of the Warriors Guild, which is where Jimmy came in. And yeah, he's the one who ends up getting voted into the banning by the tribunal, which was Framed, Foe, despite being sabotaged, very impressive, and Roydy, another time that he gets into the tribunal this season. So, of course, they pick Bodhi, and Bodhi is Bodhi, so he picks Settled. He picks the strongest opponent he can think of, the guy who's won the most challenges, who's placed the best in them throughout the season. And we have a banger of a banning. So Soup is heavily inspired by the show, The Challenge on MTV. He loves it. It's something that he draws a lot of inspiration from. And something they always do in their seasons is there's some episode that's kind of a mini final. So the final is this big multi-part thing, and there'll be an episode where they have a mini final, which is like just a more abbreviated version of the final giant challenge that's multiple different things and requires endurance and strength and some, like, you know, mental toughness and all that. And this banning basically was that mini final. It was really cool in my opinion. It was a best of 5, first to 3 challenges, 1 wins. It's incredibly different from normal bannings where you're just doing one thing, because this one really was multiple very different challenges, and watching it felt a lot like playing in last year's final, where they were jumping really quickly from challenge to challenge, and they had to be able to switch their mindset really quickly, think critically, and tie it together with the gameplay. So it was really cool. We saw Bodhi go up 1-0 and then Settled sweep back the next 3 and take Bodhi out of the competition. And Bodhi played for picking the best player, and he showed why my strategy of picking someone I think I can beat is so much better if you really want to win the games. Because the thing about this is you don't have to eliminate everyone yourself. People are talking about like, oh, you have to beat them anyway by the end. But you don't have to beat them one-on-one. You have to beat them when it comes to being well-rounded and be able to play under pressure in the final. So would I pick Settled or Bodhi or Solo Mission for a 1v1 banning? No. But it's quite possible that if I don't pick one of them, they'll get eliminated by a stronger player on the way to the final. And even in the final, I can outperform them. You know, last year in GG3, I won the final over Bodhi, Settled, Foe, Framed, Will. And they're all great performers. And if I had to pick a 1v1 elimination, I would never have picked any of them. But I beat them in the final. So it just goes to show that the objectives of different people playing the game are very different. And Bodhi is playing for the challenge, and he's playing for the excitement and entertainment. And he's incredible for it. It's a great style to watch. And it bit him right in the ass because he gets eliminated by Settled this episode. So we say goodbye to Bodhi. Huge threat. Second place finisher in last GG. Absolute beast. And this is awesome. For my chances at winning, this is absolutely huge to see Bodhi going home. Settled, same thing. Either one, honestly. The matchup, every single person here who wants to win this Gielinor Games was sitting there just licking their lips waiting for one of these two to be eliminated, because whichever one goes home, the field gets a lot weaker. These are top 2 probably performers, top 2, top 3 performers in the whole season, and even in the whole history of GG. So absolutely massive implications on the game. I just thought it was such a good, exciting banning to watch. It's too bad they couldn't take it to 5, but you know, Settled winning in 4, props to him. He really came back from that nervousness, because I think he was shaking in his boots. But he came back, he composed himself, and he did really well in the challenges. And I'm not sure that I love the mini final format, just based on the fact that it's a novelty and we haven't seen it before in GG, but it really did feel like an epic clash of titans kind of thing, rather than just a one-off like the DH banning, or even one of the more complicated challenges like the Tile Man one or the Escape Room. It did really feel, it felt like a mini final, which I think has its benefits and its drawbacks. But all in all, really cool episode. Settled is coming back after being picked by Bodhi into the elimination, and he chooses Sabotage, which is huge. That is very, very scary. Not sure exactly what he plans to do with the Sabotage, whether he's going to use it like revenge, like I have been, to try to dissuade people from putting him in the future, or if he's just going to use it on someone he feels is a threat. You never quite know. There's just a whole lot of pressure going into next week. I gotta hope that I'm not the one getting sabotaged by Settled, and we're getting real close to that final. A few more weeks of this, if I can keep it up, you know, I'm golden, and that's all that it's about. So Gotta lock in, gotta perform next week, and I will see you then. Looking forward to watching the episode on Saturday.